Welcome. Today we are unlocking the core of kinematics. We are going to see exactly how fundamental equations of motion aren't just memorized formulas but natural conclusions built entirely from calculus. Imagine a car traveling down a straight road. We know exactly where it is right now. Let's call it current position x. We also know it's moving forward with a certain velocity v. The fundamental goal of kinematics is the prediction. If we know the car's state right now, we can determine exactly where it will be in future, say exactly 10 seconds from now. If the velocity is constantly changing, simple algebra won't cut it. We need the mathematics of change. We define velocity as the rate of change of position and the acceleration as the rate of change of velocity. But derivatives only break motion down. To predict their future position, we need to build it back up. Let's start with a classic physics scenario. We have an object with mass m and it is being pushed by a constant force F. According to Newton's second law, F is equals to ma, where a is our acceleration. Because the force and the mass are constant, the acceleration a must be a constant. Look at what happens to the motion. As the time ticks forward, the object's velocity, these blue arrows, increase at a steady uniform rate. As a result, the distance it covers each second gets larger and larger. Let's translate this physical reality into mathematics. We will call this constant acceleration a naught. Now remember our calculus. Acceleration is simply the second derivative of position with respect to time. Since both equal a, we can link them together. This leaves us with a beautiful simple differential equation d2x dt square is equals to a naught. To find the velocity, we need to step up one level, integrating both sides of this equation with respect to time. Integrating the second derivative of position leaves us with the first derivative, which is just the velocity. On the right side, integrating a constant gives us a naught times t plus an unknown constant of integration c1. But what is c1? Well, if we look at the exact moment time begins at t is equals to 0, the initial velocity is simply v naught. Therefore, c1 must equal v naught. Substitute that back in and we have just derived the first kinematic equation of motion. Final velocity equals initial velocity plus accelerations times t. But calculus isn't just about shuffling symbols. It has a profound visual geometry. Let's look at the graphs of acceleration and the velocity side by side. Because acceleration is constant, its graph is perfectly flat line. As time sweeps forward, the area under the acceleration curve forms a rectangle. The area of that rectangle is its height a naught multiplied by its width t. Notice that this area a naught t is exactly the amount of velocity gained on our right hand graph. To find position, we simply repeat the process. We integrate our velocity equation with respect to time. The integral of velocity gives us position x of t. On the right side, v naught becomes v naught t and a t integrates to 1 half a naught t square. And once again we have a new constant of integration c2. Applying our initial condition at t is equals to 0, the starting position is simply x naught, therefore c2 is equals to x naught. Substituting that in gives us our full position equation. Let's look at the geometry of what we just did. On the velocity time graph, the integral is the total area under the curve. We can split this area into two simple shapes, the rectangle and the triangle. The area of the bottom rectangle is its height v times its width t. This is the distance the car would cover if it never accelerated. The area of the top triangle is one half of its base t times the height a naught t. This is the extra distance gained purely from the acceleration. Added together, they perfectly match our derived equation. Finally, if we subtract the initial position x naught from both sides, we are left with the change in position. In physics, we call this displacement, often denoted by s, and there it is, the famous kinematic equation. We have one more crucial equation to find. Sometimes in physics we don't know the time and we don't care to find it. We just want to relate the velocity directly to the position. To eliminate the time, we go back to the definition of acceleration and apply the chain rule by splitting dv by dt into dv by dx times dx by dt. That dx by dt term is exactly the definition of velocity v. We can substitute it right in. Now we can multiply both sides with dx and separate our variables. We get the position on the left and velocity on the right. A naught dx is equals to v dv. Let's integrate both sides from their initial states to their final states. Integrating a constant acceleration with respect to x gives us a naught times the change in position x minus x naught. On the right, integrating v with respect to dv gives us 1 half v squared evaluated from v naught to v. Multiplying everything by 2 and rearranging the terms, and we arrive at our third major kinematic formula. And just like before, we can replace the change in position x minus x naught with the displacement s. There we have it. 2a naught s is equals to v square minus v naught squared. And so we arrive at the complete picture. Our first integration gave us the velocity equation, perfectly linking speed, acceleration and time. A second integration stepped us up to the position equation, mapping out exact displacement. Finally, by leveraging the chain rule to eliminate the time entirely, we uncovered our third and final equation, locking velocity and distance together. Together, these three equations form the foundational toolkit of kinematics. Now that we have our toolkit, let's put it to work. We want to find the final velocity of a car. It starts from rest, so its initial velocity is 0. It accelerates at 4 meters per second squared for exactly 6 seconds. Plugging these into our first equation, we get 0 plus 4 times 6 gives us final speed 24 meters per second. Let's look at the example 2. This time we want to find the final position of a car. It starts from origin, but it is already moving with an initial velocity of 5 meters per second. It then accelerates at 2 meters per second square for 4 seconds. Using our position equation, we drop in our values. The math simplifies smoothly. 20 plus 16, meaning the car traveled a total of 36 meters. Finally, example 3. What if we don't know the time? Imagine a car starting from rest and accelerating at 3 meters per second squared over a fixed distance of 50 meters. Since no clock is needed, we grab our third equation, plugging in 0 for initial velocity, 3 for acceleration, and 50 for displacement. Taking the square root, we find